So, you want to own a towing company. Before we talk about money, here's a number you should sit with. Tow truck operators in the United States are killed at a rate of about 43 deaths per 100,000 workers. The national average across every other industry is 3. That makes towing one of the deadliest jobs in America. Not deadlier than being a cop. Deadlier than being a cop, a firefighter, and a construction worker. The Towing and Recovery Association of America estimates that on average, one tow truck driver is killed every 6 days in the U.S. Most of them are hit by passing cars while loading a vehicle on the shoulder of a highway. And here's the part that should bother you. 71% of American drivers don't even know their state has a move-over law. The people killing your employees don't know they're breaking the law when they do it. That's the business. You're buying into a $12 billion industry where 55,000 cars get towed every single day, where the margins can be enormous, where the barriers to entry are shockingly low, and where the single greatest threat to your operation is a distracted driver doing 70 in the right lane at 2 in the morning. So let's price it out. What a towing company actually costs to build, what it actually earns, how the real money works, and why this industry attracts more corruption, more lawsuits, and more violence than almost any small business in the country. Let's start with the truck. A basic light-duty flatbed, the kind that handles sedans, SUVs, and pickup trucks, which make up roughly 62% of all towing revenue in the U.S., will cost you somewhere between $58,000 and $150,000, depending on whether you buy new or used, and what kind of bed and winch system you put on it. A medium-duty wrecker, the kind that handles delivery trucks and small commercial vehicles, runs closer to $150,000 to $300,000. A heavy-duty rotator, the kind that can flip a jackknifed semi back onto its wheels on the interstate, can cost anywhere from $500,000 to $850,000. That is one truck, not a fleet. One truck. Now add insurance. A single tow truck in the U.S. costs somewhere between $5,400 and $25,000 a year to insure, depending on the type, the location, the drivers, and whether you're doing repossession work, which pushes the premium up significantly. The average sits around $450 to $740 a month for commercial auto alone, and that doesn't include workers' comp, which for towing businesses runs about $7,800 a year on top. And there's a coverage gap most new operators don't find out about until it costs them everything. Your commercial auto policy does not cover damage to the vehicle you're towing. That requires a separate policy called on-hook coverage. If you drag a customer's car off the road and scratch the paint, dent the bumper, or drop it off the flatbed, your regular insurance doesn't pay. You do. Add on-hook coverage, add garage keeper's insurance for vehicles stored on your lot, add general liability, and a small operation with 1 or 2 trucks and a few employees is looking at $15,000 to $25,000 a year just in insurance premiums, before you've towed a single car. So, what does the full startup actually look like? One light-duty flatbed. Call it $100,000. Insurance for the first year. Call it $15,000 to $20,000. A lot or yard to store impounded vehicles. Licensing, permits, signage, a dispatch system, fuel for the first few months. Depending on the state, you may need a specific towing license, a commercial driver's license, DOT compliance paperwork, and a municipal permit. 48 out of 50 U.S. states require some form of licensing. Total realistic startup cost for a single truck operation in the United States, somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000. For a more serious operation, 3 trucks, a proper lot, hired drivers, a dispatch setup, you're looking at upwards of $400,000 to $500,000. In the UK, the numbers are lower. A basic recovery truck starts around £30,000 to £50,000. Insurance runs somewhat cheaper, but the regulatory side is different. The Road Traffic Regulation Act of 1984 governs most public towing. You're dealing with local authority contracts rather than police rotation systems. The UK towing and recovery market is valued at roughly £1.2 billion, and the competition for council and motorway contracts is intense. In Australia, licensing fees average about $450 Australian dollars annually, but the market is smaller. About 1.2 million road tows a year across the whole country, compared to America's 55,000 per day. In Canada, 28% of all towing calls are weather-related, which means your business is seasonal in ways it isn't in Florida or Texas. Winter is where Canadian towing companies make their year. Summer is where they survive. Now, here's where towing gets interesting, because the truck and the insurance are just the entrance fee. The real business model is not the tow, it's what happens after. A standard roadside tow in the U.S. charges somewhere between $125 for a local job and $250 for a longer haul. Per-mile rates run $2 to $4 depending on the market. That's decent money for 30 minutes of work, but it's not where the margin lives. The margin lives in three places. 1. The impound lot. When a car is towed, it has to go somewhere. If that somewhere is your lot, the meter starts running. Storage fees in most U.S. cities range from $25 to $75 per day. Some operators charge over $100. The car sits there until the owner shows up to pay the tow fee, the storage fee, the gate fee, the administrative fee, and whatever other line items the operator has attached. In some documented cases, motorists have been charged more than $4,000 to recover a vehicle. In extreme cases, the National Insurance Crime Bureau has recorded bills exceeding $16,000. The vehicle owner has almost no leverage. The car is physically held by the towing company. In many states, if you don't pay within a set number of days, the company can apply for a lien, take ownership of your vehicle, and sell it at auction. In the U.S. alone, roughly 180,000 vehicles a year are auctioned from impound lots. You didn't just tow a car, you acquired inventory. 2. The police rotation. In most American cities, when there's an accident and the driver can't arrange their own tow, the responding officer calls a company from a rotation list. Getting on that list is, in many markets, the single most valuable thing a towing company can do. Police-related tows make up 75 to 80% of total business for most companies on the rotation. These are guaranteed calls, guaranteed payment, and guaranteed impound revenue. You don't market for them. You don't compete on price. You just answer the phone, show up, and bill. Getting on the list requires meeting equipment standards, insurance minimums, response time commitments, and sometimes passing a city inspection. In theory, the system rotates fairly among all qualifying companies. In practice, this is where the corruption starts. And we'll get to that. 3. Non-consent towing. This is private property towing. A landlord, a business owner, or a parking lot operator hires you to patrol their lot and tow anyone who shouldn't be there. The car owner didn't call you. Nobody in distress flagged you down. You are taking someone's car because a sign they didn't read says you're allowed to. This is legal in every U.S. state within limits. And it is, by far, the most profitable and most hated segment of the towing industry. A non-consent tow costs the car owner the same as a roadside tow or more, plus storage, plus fees. The towing company keeps everything. The property owner pays nothing. In many arrangements, the property owner actually gets a cut of the tow fee for every car removed, which means both parties are financially incentivized to tow as many cars as possible. You see where this goes. Now let's talk about what happens when the incentives get out of control. In King City, California, in 2014, 6 police officers, including the acting chief, were arrested in a corruption scheme involving a single towing company. The arrangement was simple. For every 10 cars an officer sent to the tow lot, the lot owner gave him a car for free. One officer sent 87% of all his tows to that single company, despite a city policy requiring rotation among 4 operators. The acting chief's brother owned the tow company. In Detroit, a federal investigation called Operation Northern Hook uncovered decades of corruption in the city's police towing operations. Multiple elected officials and police officers were convicted, including the former head of the department's Public Integrity Unit, the Internal Affairs Division. A former deputy chief had crafted a 10-year, $4 million lease with a towing company owner, overstating the lot size by 9,000 square feet, costing taxpayers an extra $650,000. The officer heading Internal Affairs was taking cash, cars, car parts, and new carpeting for his house from a towing company he was supposed to be investigating. In New York, 3 NYPD officers assigned to the 105th Precinct in Queens were arrested for bypassing the department's computerized rotation system and routing tow jobs to companies that paid them kickbacks. One of the officers, after retiring, was separately caught offering to provide personal security for a drug trafficking network. In Miami, an FBI investigation found that the owner of a towing company was paying police officers cash bribes to skip the county's rotational wrecker system and send accident tows directly to his lot. This is not a list of outliers. This is the structure of the business. When a single phone call from one officer is worth hundreds of dollars in guaranteed tow and storage revenue, the incentive to corrupt that call is built into the economics. And it's not just the police side. In 2022, the New York Attorney General sued a Poughkeepsie towing company called Bobby's Towing for systematically targeting vehicles, towing them without authorization, overcharging fees, falsifying tow tickets, and making racist comments to vehicle owners. The owner actively patrolled streets looking for cars to tow, even when no property owner had made a complaint. In Portland, Oregon, an ombudsman investigation found that a single towing company removed 178 vehicles from low-income housing complexes over 6 months, primarily affecting Latino and Hispanic residents, many of them immigrants. The cost of one tow was nearly half the monthly rent of a studio apartment in the same complex. Total towing and mileage fees extracted from those residents exceeded $51,000. In North Carolina, the state attorney general recently obtained a judgment against a towing operator who had targeted African-American neighborhoods in Charlotte, illegally booting and towing vehicles and charging drivers over $4,000 to get them back. In Philadelphia, tow operators have been documented approaching accident scenes without being called, misrepresenting fees, misrepresenting where the vehicle would be taken, and pressuring distressed drivers into signing authorizations on the spot. The city's own towing code, 20 pages of regulations, does almost nothing to address operators working outside the official rotation. The remedy it offers a citizen who's been predatory towed is the right to file a civil lawsuit against a company that still has their car. The Federal Trade Commission classifies predatory towing as an unfair business practice. But there is no single federal towing law. Regulation is state by state, city by city, and enforcement is wildly inconsistent. Fines collected from predatory towing operators across the U.S. have been estimated at roughly $150 million annually. That sounds like a lot of enforcement until you compare it to the $12 billion in total industry revenue. It's about 1 cent of penalty for every dollar earned. Now let's talk about the thing that makes this job different from every other small business in America: the violence. A tow truck driver in Jacksonville, Florida was shot and killed in May 2026 while repossessing a vehicle. The owner of the car intervened and an altercation started. The driver died at the scene. In July 2026, a tow truck driver from Jan's Towing in California was shot multiple times by a motorist during a routine service call on the 210 freeway. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The suspect fled, led police on a pursuit, and was killed at a gas station after exiting his vehicle with a gun. In Fort Lauderdale, a car owner was shot and killed by a tow truck driver during a repo confrontation. In Kansas City, a man shot a tow truck driver in the abdomen after an argument over a flat tire repair. Ring camera footage captured the man pulling a pistol from his shorts. In Birmingham, Alabama, a dispute over a towed vehicle at a parking enforcement lot ended in a fatal shooting. No criminal charges were filed. This is not a warehouse business. This is not a franchise. This is a business where your employees show up uninvited to take someone's property, often in the middle of the night, often in neighborhoods where that confrontation escalates fast. Repossession towing is especially volatile. The driver is taking a car from someone who has stopped making payments, which usually means they're already in financial distress, which usually means the conversation starts angry and goes nowhere good. Some states now require repo agents to carry specific licenses. Some require body cameras. Most require nothing beyond the truck and the paperwork. So after all of that, after the insurance, the corruption, the predatory towing lawsuits, and the genuine physical danger, How much does a towing company actually make? Let's run two scenarios. Scenario 1. Solo owner-operator, one truck. You drive the truck yourself, answer every call, work 6 or 7 days a week, and do everything from dispatch to billing. Average revenue for a single truck towing business in the U.S. is somewhere around $200,000 to $300,000 a year. After fuel, insurance, maintenance, loan payments on the truck, and your own living expenses, a realistic take-home is somewhere between $70,000 and $150,000. That's good money. That's also 7-day weeks, 2 a.m. calls, holiday shifts, and the constant risk of being hit by a car or confronted by someone who does not want you touching their vehicle. The average annual salary for a tow truck driver who works for somebody else is about $44,000 to $48,000, which means the premium you earn for owning instead of driving is roughly the value of never sleeping through the night again. Scenario 2, multi-truck operation, 3 to 5 trucks, hired drivers, a lot. You're now looking at total revenue in the range of $500,000 to $1 million a year or more. Industry-wide, the average profit margin for a U.S. towing company is about 6 to 7% after everything. Well-managed operations with impound lots and police contracts report net margins closer to 10 to 20%. On $1 million in revenue, that's $100,000 to $200,000 in net profit. You'll have a 28% employee turnover rate to manage because the people willing to do this job at 4 a.m. in January tend not to stay long. You'll spend a meaningful chunk of your time dealing with lawsuits, insurance claims, customer disputes, and city compliance audits. And here's the number that puts it all in perspective. There are roughly 32,000 towing businesses in the United States. 78% of them are independent operators, meaning 1 or 2 trucks, 1 owner, no corporate structure. The average revenue per towing business in the U.S. is about $285,000. That is not a tech startup. That is not a franchise with a brand behind it. That is a man, a truck, a phone that rings at 3 in the morning, and the willingness to stand on the shoulder of a highway in the dark while 70,000 pounds of traffic passes 3 feet from his back. The towing industry generates nearly $12 billion a year in the U.S. alone. But the median business in this industry is a guy who bought 1 truck, got on 1 rotation list, and is grinding out a living 1 wrecked sedan at a time. The money is real. The margins can be real. The impound lot is a cash machine if you have the lot and the contracts. But the product you are selling is showing up to the worst moment of someone's day, faster than anyone else, and taking something that belongs to them. The customers will hate you. The city will regulate you. The officers who send you work may one day be wearing handcuffs, and the people who love you will spend every late-night call wondering if you're coming home. Every industry has a price of entry. In towing, the price is a truck. The cost is everything else.